Yo, welcome. We're back. Wholesale Hardknocks, episode 6, with my boy Mike, and we got a special guest, freaking real estate entrepreneur, investor, serial entrepreneur, incredible husband, incredible father, good friend of mine, Logan Manzanares. I like that. You like how I said that?
Guys. Yes,
you got that
right.
What's up, brother?
How you guys doing? Thank you guys so much for having me on. Appreciate it. Excited to be here this morning, and really curious. What are we going to talk about today? What's on the agenda for today, fellas?
Logan, bro.
Everything about you, bro. I'm super excited to have you. bro. I have the liberty of, we had a few great conversations, and I realized they weren't even about really business. Like, the stuff that I learned from you was really just man stuff, right? Like how to be a good person type of thing. And I texted you that the other day. Like, I just appreciate you, bro. So I'm super excited for you to be here. This is definitely gonna be a good one. We're gonna talk. I really want to know how you started, right? Like, what you had me on your podcast for my origin story, but I really want to learn about you, how you got started.
It's awesome. It all started back in June of 1988. No, so really, I was born in a military family. I was actually born in Ogden, Utah, on an Air Force base, Hill Air Force Base. And that was my upbringing, was coming from a military family. And Germany, we lived in Texas, and then we ended up in Montana. And so that was kind of my foundation came from us traveling around the world and moving, right? And until I got to college, I never lived in the same house more than 2 years. And so very much a gypsy. And how I see that benefit me today is that I don't see home like most people do, as like, this is my home, and they get so emotional to it and they're afraid to leave it, or they're afraid for somebody else to use that home, and there's so much emotional attachment to it, and I just don't have that, right? And that's because of my upbringing. And so that's kind of where that came from. My parents ended up splitting up when I was like 7th or 8th grade, and I lived with my dad. My little brother lived with my mom, and then we kind of again created this like we moved around. I moved back with my mom, then with my dad, back to my mom again. So I definitely jumped around a lot. And again, I think it comes back to that same place of like, I don't have like an emotional attachment to one house or one specific thing. And once I got into high school, though, I was like really frustrated. I was an angry young man. And so like I went to anger management for a couple of years just because my dad could not handle me. I would punch holes in the walls. I would just like act out. I got ISS from school from yelling at grown-ups for fighting, all that stuff.
No way, bro.
Yeah, that's crazy. I could never see that. But what age were you at that point?
Yeah, so that was, I think I went to anger management. I was like 9th grade, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, right in there. And so my parents split up in 7th grade, and that was, I think, what kind of like just allowed me the freedom to just be a dick, for lack of a better word, right? So yeah, so went through that process, and therapy didn't help me, right? It didn't help me, not even a little bit. But what did end up helping was fitness. I fell into fitness on accident, and in school, it was my junior year, so I was at that point, I think, 15 or 16 years old. You got to pick your classes, right? That was like the first year I actually got to pick electives and classes. I went to a small school, really small school. And my freshman and sophomore year, I did PE. I think everyone, that wasn't an option. But when I became a junior, I got to pick if I wanted to do PE or advanced PE, or I got to do shop class or something like that. And I was always into sports, played sports all the way through high school. And I was like, advanced PE, that sounds fun. Way more fun than shop class. And I chose advanced PE thinking it was going to be like running around playing capture the flag and playing kickball and things like that. But it was just lifting weights, right? And so that was my introduction to lifting weights. I showed up the first day and was like, oh yeah, you're going to be down here in the dungeon. Our gym was in like below our gymnasium, like the basketball court. You walked into the dungeon, and everything in there was old school, man. It was like original, like it was grimy, right?
So Logan, I feel like we at this point, from what you've been talking about, we've lived the exact same life. Like I'm envisioning myself in my high school weight room, and it's the same freaking weight room right below the gym, like old nasty. That's so crazy. Keep going.
Those are the best weight rooms, though.
Oh, they are. They're fire.
Those are low-key the best weight rooms.
Yeah, that was amazing. You could turn the music up really loud, and everything was used in there, right? Nothing was new.
Right.
And so that's where I got my exposure to lifting weights. It was an accident. Even though I played sports, like weight training was not something that the coaches made us do or forced us to do. Again, I went to a really small school, and so I started lifting weights. And I remember within the first couple of weeks, my body started to change, and I was like, "Whoa, this is like pretty cool." And I remember this time. So I'm gonna go back just like maybe like a year or two. I remember looking in the mirror and just being like so frustrated and so mad. I hated the way I looked. I hated everything about my life. I just felt like I was really out of control. A lot of that was I hated that my parents weren't together anymore. And I felt like I had no control. You know, I was at that time probably a 13 or 14-year-old boy going through puberty, and I just was like very emotional. And I remember looking in the mirror and just like thinking I hated myself. I did not like myself. And I felt like I had no control. My ears were big, my eyes were big, my nose were big, my body was really small. And I just was like, man, I do not like myself. And so when I found weight training, my body started to change. I knew right away, like, this is my thing. Like, this is where I get to recapture control. This is where I get to actually live life on my terms. And here's the funny part, guys. Like, this is no joke. This was my epiphany I had about 2 or 3 weeks into weight training. I was like, well, I can't change how big my ears are. I can't change how big my nose is. I can't change how big my head is. But I could change how big my body is. What if I just made my body bigger? Also, my head would look smaller, right? And that was legitimately my thought process. And that's why as soon as I started to see my body change, I was like, dude, I'm hooked. Like, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to get huge, right? Because then I wouldn't be so self-conscious about all this other stuff I have going on. And that's where I fell in love with the idea of being able to be in control and be able to change my body. And that belief, it has evolved over the years, of course, to just where I believe that now I have control over my life, and the effort I put into something is a direct correlation to what I'll get out of it. And I've been able to use that belief when I got into business. So I started my first business 10 years ago. And again, I knew nothing about business. I was a personal trainer. So I went to school, ended up going to college and getting a degree in exercise science. And then right after college, I got a job as a one-on-one personal trainer at a big box gym, and did that for about 2.5 years, learned the ropes, learned how to train people, learned how to actually get business, because I don't think many people understand this as a personal trainer, as a one-on-one personal trainer, like, you don't get paid hourly. You get paid like us, commission, right? That's how we all get paid. And so the benefit, though, of being in a big box gym is that you just have like all your clients are already there, right? So you just got to go talk to people on the floor. You got to do free consultations. You got to do free training sessions. And that's how I was able to get clients. And I learned how to it was my first experience in sales. And so I did that for 2.5 years. I amassed, honestly, only about 20 clients. About 20 clients. I was actually not very good at sales. I was not very good at acquiring new clients, new customers, but I was really good at training. I really connected with clients. I was a very personal people. I loved, like, Mike, like, I would chat with you about fitness all day long and just curious about you. And I would pour into people, right? And so what I realized looking back on it, is I learned how to communicate with people, right? I learned how to actually be a good listener. I learned how to, like, look and at somebody and, like, add value to them, even outside of me just in a training session.
Mm-hmm.
And so
so really, you were getting good at sales. You just didn't know it.
Yeah, exactly. I was getting good at talking to people. I wasn't necessarily good on the front end of, like, asking people for money. I wasn't good at that process at that time.
Yep.
And so when I left the gym, I started my own gym. I took about half the clients. So 10 of them came with me and the other 10 didn't. And so I started my personal training gym, literally about 10 clients, with no plan of how to get new clients. no plan on how to like upsell or maximize my current clients. I just wanted to bring them over, and I honestly got super lucky. I found a spot that I shared with a guy who did.
Bro, time out. It's not luck. It's
No,
not luck.
here's
You
what
put
was
yourself
lucky.
in the right position, bro. You took action. You just said, "Fuck it." You went.
Gerald, here's where I got lucky is that my thought. So I started up a little bit of money, and I thought that, and when I say a little bit of money, I literally probably started about 10 grand, which at that time seemed like a lot of money. But my idea was that I would find a place where I could rent for $1,000 a month, which at that time in my head was like kind of pushing the envelope, and that's where I would, train out of. And I got really lucky because I was looking for $1,000 a month places and I just couldn't find anything. Like there was nothing out there on the market. And then I found this like little small spot that was like $200 a month. I had to share it. I had to share it with this guy who did Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I was like, man, I don't really want to share this. Like I want to have my own thing, man. And I originally said, like, I saw the ad on Craigslist and I was like, no. And then one morning, it was like 2 or 3 or 4 days later, I can't even quite remember. I was like, something called me to like reach out to this guy. It's like, just see what he's got to say. So I reached out to him, went and met him, and I was like, okay, boom, like this is what I need. This is what I need. Like I'm ready to get out of this big box shit I'm at. I want to go do my own thing. And it was $200 a month. That's what it was. And ironically enough, like it was $200 a month of the whole thing. I paid the whole rent and he didn't pay any of the rent. Like that was like, he basically wholesaled he arbitraged this lease to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he still used it, which was great. Looking back on, like, great for him. And so this spot was like 800 square feet, and we shared it. And so at that time, I had like 2 squat racks and 2 platforms, and then he had all of his gear in the back, which was funny because some of my clients, a lot of my clients were women. And so they would come in and they would bring their kids sometimes. And so, the front half was like this gym with 2 squat racks and barbells and plates. And then the back half was his stuff. And he had like fake guns, like fake AK-47s and like fake handguns and like self-defense type stuff. Right. So it was awesome. So that's how I got my first business, man. That's where it all kind of started. And that's where I kind of learned the business ropes. And I literally knew nothing about business, guys. Like, I was a personal trainer who just wanted to serve my clients. Like that was actually my intention. And the only reason I was able to stay in business, looking back on it, is just because I really poured my clients. My clients didn't leave, but I also didn't have any mechanism to get new clients. And that was probably a 3-year process of me, like randomly getting referrals and just keeping the clients I had. I had clients that I'd trained for 5, 6, 7 years. Like I had very loyal clients because I was able to pour into them, right? Just like how any sort of relationship is that the more you're able to pour into somebody, the longer they're going to stay with you.
Bro, that's super nuts because I didn't really know your backstory at all before this. And it is very identical to mine. Like legit, almost exact same kind of upbringing, exact same thing with the weight room and everything. Like when I was a freshman, I started really getting into lifting weights because of football. And essentially because of my upbringing, I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep my ass in the weight room. That's it. Because I know if I go home, I'm going to freaking be miserable. So I'm just going to stay here. Right. And then after that, like this is after a bunch of different things. But another thing similar to you is I started in a barbershop cutting hair. And I ended up leaving that barbershop and taking, just like yourself, half of the clients with me into my own little space, which I'm actually in right now. And it's very super similar. So similar. So I'm like, wow, that's freaking nuts. But with that being said, before you go on to your real estate journey, I'm thinking about it, how it's so similar. For me personally, I had to go back. Like when I was lifting weights and everything, it was almost like a mask of what was really going on. So I had to go back and really dig deep and figure out what the fuck was wrong with me. Like there was some shit that was wrong with me because just like you, I was a mad ass little dude. I get to college, I finally can go do whatever the hell I want, which I kind of did anyways, no matter what. But I was free from my past, right? So then, but I didn't go back to it. And at that point, I didn't go back to it and I didn't like figure out what was wrong with me. So I started wilding out. I would get drunk as shit. Like I was wild. In college, I was wild. And it's because I didn't go back. So it wasn't until I went back and like dug the shit out from me to figure out what it was that was like eating at me. My life didn't change. So was there a point in your life, and I'm assuming maybe it's part of your real estate journey, but Was there a part in your life, maybe even before the real estate journey, where you had to go back and dig and be like, yo, this is actually what's going on?
Yeah. I think that's why fitness is such a great foundation to learn skills from, is that a lot of it is personal development. A lot of it is self-reflection, like how you go to the gym. Like, again, is like a lot of that can start from a place of pain, and it start from, I want to go mask something. I want to go hide who I really am. And I think that's how almost every single person gets into fitness, because they want to hide some shit, right? Mm-hmm. But as you start to evolve in that journey, and it's also the reason why most people fall out of fitness, is because pain is not a great enough motivator over the course of a long time. Like, pain is actually something that should be temporary, not something that's permanent. And so the reason why most people don't create long-term success with their fitness journeys is because once they solve the pain, they're like, now what? Right? And then the next evolution of that is gain. And like, what's actually calling you? And what is your purpose in life? Most people never make that transition. So I was able to make that transition into like, okay, now that I'm out of pain, right? I'm no longer angry, this angry, horny little boy anymore, right? Like, what am I actually like what is my purpose? What am I trying to do on this planet? And I made a post about this the other day, and it was the moment that I quit worrying about what I could get from life, and I started focusing on what I could give to life, was really when it all changed, right? And so my fitness journey actually no longer became about me. It became about how can I serve other people in their fitness journey. Real estate, when real estate changed for me, is when I quit worrying about like, what can I get from real estate versus what can I give back to real estate. And same thing with my family, same thing with my wife, my marriage. Like, that's one of the most important relationships you can have, is the one with your spouse. And so many people, in the beginning, it's all about giving, and then somewhere along that journey, it eventually turns back around to like, what can I get from my spouse? And you got to be able to turn that back around and focus on what can I give to my spouse, and then all of a sudden your marriage becomes freaking amazing, right? Because it's no longer transactional. So I would say that's something that is a lot of reflection, and it's a lot of just paying attention to like, why do you do things that you do? Like, Mike, like, why do you do podcasts? Why do you do real estate? And actually like asking yourself those questions, and it's a lot of reflection. And so whether it's digging up the past or whether it's focusing on the future, ultimately self-reflection is actually the skill set that is most important. I think it's one of the like the skill sets that I would say that I'm really good at. It's my superpower. It's my awareness. I'm very aware of people. I'm very in tune. Ed Milet made a great point. Is the first time I heard anybody else say this, and what he said actually helped me make that connection. Like, when I'm in a room with somebody, I'm really aware of what's going on. I pick up on things. Again, part of being sales is that you really are like, you got to pay attention. And I think that's ultimately like in my background, because there was so much volatility and there's so much moving around, that I was always on edge. And I was always looking around like, well, are we getting ready to move again? Like, are we, like, where, like, how are things going to change? I'm always looking for that. And because I was very self-conscious as a kid too, I'm like, how's this person thinking of me? Like, are they looking at my ears? Are they looking at my nose? Like, do they think I'm ugly? Do they think I'm weird? Right? I'm like always like paying attention to people and seeing, like, trying to pick up on cues. And I believe that in as a young man did not serve me. But that skill set that I acquired of being able to like pay attention and honestly be a good listener and be very aware of the room has now served me on now. If I look at Daryl, like, how do I add value to Daryl? I can just like, pay attention, listen to him, hear how he talks, and pick up on that. Right.
So good.
In a sales situation, same thing. Like, you're looking for opportunities to create value. You're looking for opportunities to create rapport. And so a lot of that's just done by listening.
That's so good. That's funny that you say that, because last night me and my girl were talking about somebody in her life. She's like, yo, I just realized that this person is truly crazy. And I told her, I'm like, you know what? I actually realized that the day that I met that person. The reason why I did it. And then she actually heard the Ed Milet story too. And I started saying that. I'm like, yo, it's because when I was younger, I could just really understand what was going on. Like at age 5, I understood that there was some fucked up shit going on. You know what I mean? So I had to I was really aware of stuff. And then she said what she said was, oh, you're trying to be like Ed. She said that exact thing. So it's so funny that you say that. But bro, that's amazing. Daryl, I think your mic is muted. But bro, that's so funny.
Yo, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Nah, I was over here trying to talk the whole time. But
My bad. I didn't even realize it.
I was like,
Logan, could you talk
Like
about
Daryl's been real quiet.
uh,
Daryl's been a great listener right now.
I really was just listening because I was trying to talk. I was like, oh, okay, next time.
he's probably like, damn, you guys are
We're
assholes.
just talking over Daryl. He's like, no respect up in here, man. No respect.
No, I was going to say though, it's actually crazy that you brought up just how aware you are, because I was just thinking last night about the interview and stuff like this. And that was one of the questions I wrote down. Have you always been so aware? Right. And
Yeah.
just like I told you when we were at Clever, like just the way, like when we had our first conversation, I told you it felt like you were staring through my soul, right? You're just staring, and we're on Zoom, right? And I could feel that you're like super aware of everything that's going on. And even when I was hanging out with you and your family, your baby girl, she started crying, right? And it's just crazy because you're teaching her this. You're teaching her how to control her emotions and be aware of her emotions at such a young age, right? She started crying, and you just get real close. And you're like, hey, breathe, get happy, right? Be happy. And it's just like that. Like that's so powerful. When I was thinking about it just over the weekend, I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
this little girl is going to be super dangerous because she can control. She learned how to control her emotions at such a young age.
Yeah.
What makes that important to you to just pass that on and just yeah.
It's dude, that's like one of the most important things to me. That's actually the most important thing for me is what you said right there, and it's the thing I'm most proud of from a parenting standpoint, and from her, like what I'm proud of my girls is their ability to be aware of their emotions and be able to control their emotions. And it goes back to what I told you guys in my story is like I was someone who was not in control of our emotions. I think we all probably share a lot of that as well. It's like there's been times where we just felt out of control. We had no system, we had no process. No one taught us how to be able to control our emotions, put ourselves in situations where we could use that energy, because all like when we say emotion is just an energy, and a lot of it comes from anger, anxiety, fear. Like those are just those are energies that we perceive as being negative, and we take that and like I'm angry, and so you act angry, right?
Yep.
But if you can take that energy and you can teach somebody how to perceive that as a positive thing, it's like that energy that you're feeling, like that's happiness, like that's happiness. That anxiety you're feeling, that's excitement, right? That sadness you're feeling, and you're able to flip that around, like that's like the first step in happiness is feeling sadness. And you're able to teach somebody that, their life becomes totally different. You don't have people who are depressed. You don't have people who have suicidal thoughts. You don't have people who are entitled or think the world is out to get them. You have people out there who are trying to serve and try to make the world a better place. And so that's my role with our kids, is to teach them those skill sets at a very young age, to give them the foundation that they actually can focus on things that actually matter, which is serving rather than just try and take care of their damn selves, right? Like we live in such a selfish culture that, and in all fairness, because we've been taught the skills how to not only just take care of ourselves, but if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. And so my goal is to have our kids be like, dude, like I got this, right? And so they have the attention to be able to serve the world, make the world truly a better place.
That's so dope, bro. That's so important because it's almost like learning a language, right? If you try to learn a language at 20 years old, it's much tougher than trying to learn it at 1 year old or 2 year old. So as they're being developed from a young age and you're instilling that mindset into them, bro, it's a wrap. Like your kids are going to be high level. They're going to be way higher level than Logan.
Yeah, 1,000 times. And here's an advantage I have that most people don't have, and it's actually the advantage that Pace has, and it's probably the reason why Pace is an amazing teacher as well. Is so I met my wife 8 years ago. My wife was married at the time I met her. She was going through her divorce, but my wife came with a 4-year-old little girl, right? And so not only was I deciding to date this woman, but I was also deciding to date her 4-year-old little girl with her. And so I was able to become dad almost overnight, right? And my wife's ex-husband, he ended up moving away down to Texas about a year or two after we got together. So Kobe, who was our oldest daughter, she lived with us full time, right? And so I literally became live-in dad, and I got to experience what parenting was really quickly, and I missed the first 4 years of being able to build rapport with somebody, being able to have somebody call me dad. I had to come in, I had to insert myself into a situation, which it sounds like we've all been in before, where our parents split up, and do we love our the people who date our mom or dad who come in? Right? Absolutely not. I hated all my. So when my parents got divorced, my mom started dating a guy right away who's actually one of my it was my first girlfriend's dad, right? Which was awkward. But I hated him. Like I hated her and I hated him for a very long time. I didn't talk to my mom for probably 2 years. Like legitimately did not talk to her for 2 years. And this was right before cell phones, right? So I'm not that much older than you guys, but this was right before cell phones became popular. And so my mom had to literally knock on me and my dad's door. We lived in a trailer after my parents split up. She'd knock on the door. I can remember opening the door and like chatting with her at the front door. I wouldn't let her come in the house. Like that's how angry I was at her. And she ended up marrying that guy who she started dating, and I love him today. I adore him, and I'm very grateful for her. And I tell her this. I was like, thank you for not giving up on me. And Danny is his name. Like, thank you so much for like they always poured into me. They still like, even though I was a dick. I was such a dick. And I wouldn't even talk to them, and they still continue to love him. They still continue to pour in me. And like today, they are one of my favorite people, right? But going back to the conversation of we hate our step parents, right? Like it's part of the game, and it was awesome because I had that experience, right? I had that, so I felt called. I felt prepared to step into this role, and I did things totally different than all the people who try to come into my life and try to like pretend to be my dad or my stepmom, right? And I did not give this girl anything she wanted, right? Like I was like hard on her. I was like, I didn't try to win her over. I didn't try to like give her candy and cookies and like come be my friend. I was like, I'm being me. And you know what? You're disrespectful. Cause she was a very disrespectful little kid. And I was like, I ain't hacking that. Like,
Right.
that ain't gonna fly. Right. And so if you guys can probably imagine, like this was it was an uphill battle, and that created friction between me and my wife Katie. Again, at the time she's not my wife, she's just my girlfriend. But like our very first anniversary date, our very first anniversary, we went to this hot springs, which is about 45 minutes away from us. Right, it's great, amazing. And our very first anniversary, she spent it crying because I was just like, dude, like we have to change how we're parenting. Like this parenting is not going to work, and like. I looked at what our vision was of what we needed to be in the future, and what was happening right now was like we were not going to be able to be a family. We were like me and her were not going to be on the same page because there was like our values did not line up. And so we spent that first anniversary just crying, right, and just like getting all that stuff out. And we have had many conversations, like so many we still have those conversations, right? They're not as like sometimes as dramatic, but like we still have those hard conversations. But it's the reason why that my relationship with Katie right now is like, dude, it is so good, it's so strong because we literally have these direct conversations consistently. The reason why Mai and Kobe, she's now 12, at the time she was 4, why our relationship is so good and it's built on so much respect is because like she knows what she's going to get from Pops, right? And this is something that's really cool that it just became something that we did when we had our youngest Lainey, is that I wanted Kobe and Lainey to both call me the same thing, right? And so Kobe has a dad, and I respect that, and I never tried to be her dad. I never ever did, right? And she never called me dad ever. She still doesn't call me dad. But we created a name. We called it Pops, right? So I am Pops to Kobe, and I am Pops to my youngest daughter, Lainey. You can say both call me Pops because I wanted them both to be able to call me the same thing. I didn't want her to call me Pops or Lainey to call me Dad and then Kobe to call me something else. And so like I've always thought about that from that standpoint of like me being in Kobe's standpoint, like how would I want someone to come in? How would I want a step dad? I want someone to act if it were me. And so that's the advantage I had in that relationship with her. is that I came from a very similar background that she did, from a divorced parents, and I hated all my step parents, and I use that to my advantage with her. And now, again, she comes to me for advice on things, and we have a very good relationship built on respect, and like she knows what she's going to get from me, and I expect the same thing from her.
So you and your wife, when you were coming up, when Logan was hustling, trying to get out the mud, were you guys like building a business together at that point, or were you guys kind of building two different empires?
Yeah. So when I left the gym to start my own gym, that was December 2013, and very similar with Chuck, that like I was still kind of partying. I was still kind of playing half in, half out, right? I was chasing women. I was very distracted, and I realized real quickly that if I actually wanted to build this business that was going to be successful, I needed to focus. And I hadn't taken care of one of the most important pieces, which was finding a mate, right? And as guys, we're all guys here. It's one of the strongest natural urges, temptations we have is we need to find a mate, right? And I was looking for lots of mates, and I realized that it was very distracting to find lots of mates, and like it was very distracting. And I read this book. You guys have probably all heard it. Maybe you guys have read it. It was written by Napoleon Hill. It's called Think and Grow Rich. You guys read that book before?
Yeah.
Right. And there's one chapter in there. There's one chapter that changed my life, right? That book is great. I've done lots of like digging deep on that book, but there's one chapter that in that moment changed my life, and it was a chapter called Sex Transmutation. And I don't know if you guys remember this chapter, but it really resonated with me because in the book, Napoleon Hill, he talks about this idea of sex transmutation, that the reason why most people aren't successful until their 40s, 50s, and 60s is because they spend their 20s and 30s and 40s chasing tail, right? They're freaking distracted. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that, and he started giving examples of that. I was like, oh my gosh, like that is me. Like I have a strong natural urge. Like I don't have to, like, I'm just like so focused. And when I get focused on that, on chase women, like it's all I do all day long. And I become like almost like obsessed with this idea of like trying to chase women. I was like, okay, I got to a place in my life where I realized like it wasn't serving me. Like it actually wasn't who I wanted to be or who I needed to be, and didn't align with my business goals. I was like, but the fact that he said that I could use that energy, I could transfer that, and I could take that energy that I have, this tendency to chase women, but I could use that in my business, and I could create this massive empire. I was like, oh, that is it. But he also said that you still need to take care of that urge. You need to take care of that. Like you basically need to find that person. And I was like, oh, boom. And so at that moment I started looking, right? And so instead of me looking in bars and looking on dating apps, and again, at that time, Tinder was like just on the rise. So I didn't even get to like experience Tinder, which is one of my, I still regret.
That's probably a good thing, bro.
So I never got to experience Tinder. But that's when I started looking, okay, I got to look different places because I got to find this person.
Hold on. I want to tell a story about Tinder really quick. When it first came out, we're in college. And like, this is when it first came out. One of my homies like chatted a girl on there, ended up having her come to the dorm room. And we're all like, yo, there ain't no way. Because this is when it first came out. We're all like peeping out the windows and stuff. We're like, yo, ain't no way it's going to be a dude that comes, right? Ended up being like a smoking chick. And we were like, bro, we're all on the app.
Time to get on Tinder.
Buddy.
Yeah.
But anyways, go ahead, my bad.
Yeah, so I started realizing that I needed someone stable in my life. I need somebody who was not going to be a floozy and was going to be in and out. And my buddy, ironically, who I lifted with, who he didn't start the gym with me, but he was definitely like the person who was like encouraging me, and he worked with me at the big box gym as a front desk person. And so he was like, dude, he was hanging out with this girl. I was like, I have this gal, she's going through a divorce. And he exaggerated the story. He's like, she'll do things on the first date, right? He didn't quite say that. I'll keep it PG. I was like, okay, sold, right? And so we go to this place called the Bozeman Hot Springs, and it was me and him and this girl, his girl, and then they brought this other girl, and all of a sudden she came with this kid, right? I'm like, in my head, like, I'm not shitting you guys. I'm like, how is this gonna work? Like, are they gonna watch the kid while we do things? Like, I was like, it's like, how's this gonna work, right? And it was funny because the first time that Katie and I met, like, she was super standoffish towards me. She like didn't give me too much time of day. And again, she had her kid there. She was playing with her kid the whole time. So we were kind of all sitting around the hot springs. I'm like, this is freaking awkward, right? And then so at the very end, we kind of chatted just a little bit. But there was something about her that, like, she was like not interested in me, right? And I think as guys, it's like we want what we can't have. And there's something about that just like kind of like drew me in. And then I was like, oh, this actually is probably what I need. I need somebody who's not gonna do crazy things on the first date. Someone who actually is like, who's got a kid who like doesn't want to go party, doesn't want to go drink, don't go things like that. And that ultimately was like, okay, Katie's actually the person I need, right? Because although like I recognized that when I read the book, I didn't quite put it together. I was still, we have urges. And I was like, oh, and then I saw her, and boom, that was it. And so I spent all my energy and time on her and wooing her and her daughter as well, and trying to get them to love me and appreciate me. And so that was really the foundation of where my business journey started. Okay. And so again, that was probably 4 months when I started my business. So Katie got to really experience, like, she didn't get to see the first 2.5 years of me being a personal trainer, but she was there within the first 4 months of me building my business. But she had her own, she had a job. She worked as an office manager for a dentist office. She had worked there for 5, 6, 7 years, and she was as high up in that business as she could. So she was office manager. She was like the one who called to make sure people were paying their bills for the collections. She got paid a nice commission on top of a salary. She was like, she had a good job, right? She had a good job. And so that was like that was 2013 I started the business. So 2014 is when we met. And so it was probably 3 years that she watched me try to, when I say try, try to build this business. And I couldn't figure it out, guys. Like, I could not figure it out. I beat my head against the wall. Like, I worked my ass off.
You're talking about real estate or the gym?
No, this is still my fitness business. This is still fitness, right?
So up to this point in 2014, you didn't really make any money.
No, I was literally just getting by, right? I was getting by. I expensed on my personal expenses. That way, at least I wasn't getting double taxed, but I was just barely getting by, trying to figure it out. And I worked my ass off from sun up to sundown. I worked a lot. And on the weekends, I would try to figure out, once I finally realized that, oh, now I need a plan for marketing and sales, then I started doing research on the weekends, and I would buy courses, buy books. I didn't have any money to like really go invest in mentorship. Plus, it wasn't even on my mind. Like, no one had ever like introduced that concept to me. And so I spent a lot of time trying to figure it out on myself. And for about 3 years, couldn't quite figure it out. And then one day I was sitting there on Facebook, and I got this ad that came across my feed, and it was this guy saying he could fill my gym in 30 days. Right. I was like, it's worth checking into. Right. And then I clicked on it, put my information in, and there were some testimonials in there. And his offer was he could fill my gym in 30 days and it wouldn't cost me anything. I was like, well, that's a freaking amazing offer. Let me check that out a little bit more. And so I dug into it, and I opted in, tried to get on a schedule, and like there's no room for me on the schedule. I was like, oh, that's disappointing, right? Must be busy. And then probably 10 minutes later, I got this Facebook request, a Facebook message from this guy named Alex. I was like, didn't know who he was, right? But after he messaged me, I went and looked at his profile, and the very first video of him was a video of him squatting 455 pounds for 3 reps. I still remember it, right? And he's wearing squat shoes. So again, I'm not sure how much how into weight training you guys are, but basically, like, you have these squat shoes. They're called Do-Wins. They're like weightlifting shoes. Basically, you only get those shoes if you're like a freaking lifter, right? Mm-hmm. And he's wearing these Do-Wins, and he's wearing knee sleeves and squatted 455 for 3. I was like, oh, this is my dude, right? Like ultimately my trust level went really high, even though I just opted in on a Facebook ad. I was like, okay, this guy is like I trust him. Right? Yeah. That's because like I would trust somebody who squats 455 pounds. That was just my thought process. Maybe dumb, but that's what it was.
I like that.
And so got on the phone. Actually, like we just messaged over or Facebook Messenger, and he showed me a schedule. And the schedule was just like, whoo. Like it was, he's like, sorry, bro. He's like, but I can get you in on a Saturday. And I think that was like a Thursday that I opted in. And so, it was a Friday. He's like, I can get you on Friday. I was like, cool. And so I got on a schedule, and it wasn't even him. It was his assistant. I got on a call with on Friday, and she started asking me questions, started qualifying me, asked me about my gym, asked me how much revenue I made, my employees, all this other stuff. And I felt interrogated. I was like, damn, like, I'm not sure if I'm even good enough for this program. Right. And she got the phone. She's okay. I think you can make it to the next step, right? I think you're qualified to make it to the next step to actually chat with Alex. And so she booked me on a Saturday she showed me his schedule. His schedule was crazy. She's like, I have a spot on Saturday, 8 a.m. I was like, perfect. And so I was actually at Katie's house. Me and Katie did not live together. Again, this was probably 3 years into us dating. I was sitting on Katie's in her bedroom while her and our oldest daughter and her roommates were out there in the living room. It was a Saturday morning. I'm sitting there chatting with Alex. He's telling me about this program called Gym Launch and telling me about the offer and telling me about all this other stuff. I'm like, oh, dude, this actually makes sense. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, well, how much does it cost? Right? Get into that piece of the conversation. And he's like, are you ready for the sticker shock? My heart actually just sank a little bit. And I was like, go for it. He's like, it's 10K. And I was just like, I sat there in silence and was like, took a deep breath. I was like, what options do I have? Right? Like, is that up front? Is that option? Is that like, is there some sort of payment plan? And he gave me two options. It was pay it all up front, or you can give me half now and half in 30 days. And I remember in that moment, it was like testing. It tested me. It tested me my belief. And at that moment, I was like, it was no longer about Alex. It was just the belief in myself. And I was like,
yeah,
the word. And Alex told the story. He's on the phone. I remember him on the phone after I said it, and I just sat there. He's like, I sat there. I was like, I knew that the first person who said something lost. And so I didn't say anything. And then he said, fuck it. And that was it. Right. And so I gave my bank information and I told him, hey, I actually don't have that money in the bank. Like here's the funny part, guys. I had $10,000. I told you this, but I didn't have it in the bank because I didn't trust the money being in the bank. I had it under my pillowcase in a Crown Royal bag. Right. It was $100 bills. It was 10K sitting underneath my pillow. I literally slept under this pillow. It was this money that I was going to use one day to do something with. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but it was just like, my safety net. So I was like, hey, I'll get my information, but wait till Monday to run it. Cause I got to go put the money in the bank account. Right. Like it's actually not even in there. It's underneath my freaking pillow. And
you couldn't have told him that, bro. He's going to run down on you.
So here, like, it was 8 a.m. in the morning. I had promised a different guy who I lifted with, to go help him move. And so Alex told me he was going to send me information so I could log in. I could start getting down on the information. And like the quicker I got into it, like the faster I could start making money. He was like, dude, like you can make money right away. I was like, okay. But I'd already committed to helping this guy move. And he lived like 25 miles away. And I remember telling kids like, hey, Katie, signed up. I'll tell you more about it later, but I got to go. Right. And so I remember getting in my truck literally moments after that phone call, and I was driving. I still remember this moment. Like, I remember like stopping at a stoplight and just like freaking crying, crying my eyes out, dude. Just like, my life's going to be different. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to be for the better, but I knew it was going to be different. I was like, it could either go like, I'm either going out of business or my life's going to go to the moon. And I remember crying and like just like feeling that emotion. And I drove 25 miles out to this guy's house and I helped him move. And all day I was just thinking about like this thing that I just poured in. Like I just like gave all my money. That's all the money I had. I'm just like thinking about it all day long. But I also made that commitment to help him move. And so I spent half the day helping him. And then once I was done, I drove back and I literally went right to the gym and I logged in and I went through the information. So that was like Saturday. So I think I spent all day Saturday night. Sunday, as much as I could. And then Monday I had my meeting with my team. I had a small team, about 3 people with me, and I told them what I did. And I remember looking at them, looking at you guys. I was like, here's what I did. I bought this program. It's all my money. It's got to freaking work. And you guys are either doing this with me or I'm going to freaking do it myself. If I have to knock on every freaking door in Bozeman, Montana, I will freaking knock on a door to make this thing work. And that's like the message I delivered to them. They were like, okay, this dude's serious, right?
You're a gangster, bro.
And on Tuesday, I turned the ads on. And Wednesday, I did my first freaking sale. And by that Saturday, I'd sold 36 people at $500 and made 18 grand.
Shut up.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
No shit. Not like that first month I made 50 grand. And
bro, holy crap.
Yeah, it just like that's what happened. And so that was my introduction to the business world, right? For 3 years. Like, in mind you, the previous year I had made 50 grand the entire year. Right.
You burned the shit.
So
bro.
Wow, bro.
That's when my business was like, whew, that was like to the moon, right? But it took a lot of time. It took a lot of sacrifice. It took a lot of like, not sure if this shit was going to work.
What year was that?
That was 2017.
Right, and you started at like 2014. So that whole entire 3-year period, you were hustling. You're like, yo, why the heck isn't this shit working?
I was just banging my head against the wall, man. Just banging it. But I was learning. You know, and that's the part that now looking back on is like, I was learning. That's what I had to go through. I had to go through that. And like, while again, in like my story is very like dramatic because I literally went from nothing to a lot overnight. But like, I was acquiring those skill sets over the course of time. And the benefit that I learned in that program from Alex was that he just actually made everything make sense to me. So like when I saw the information, I was just like, oh yes. Oh, like it just all made sense, right? Just like it was what I needed. Like I had the package. I understood all the skill sets separately, but he packaged it for me in a way that it was very actionable. And I was just able to go like this. Right. And so I wouldn't have been as successful if I wouldn't have actually been beating my head against the wall for those previous 3 years of me in business. And then even the 2 years before that of me working for somebody else. Right. So like it just was like all those skill sets. It just took time for me to be able to utilize those in a way that I was able to monetize them.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Right. So anyway, and so I was very lucky because that was like I was one of Alex's first clients, and I had a good relationship with him, and he was texting me all the time. He was like, the only reason, guys, that I sold 100 people. So the only reason I made 50 grand is because of Alex. Because after I sold those first 36 people, I was done. I was like, I'm good, right? Like I was like, I made the money back. Like I'm good. And he's like, Gym launch was the first thing. He's like, I have another thing. It's called Gym Legacy. He's like, that's actually the cool shit. Like that's where you actually get to make money without you doing anything. And like, I'll teach you about the system, teach you how to hire people, I'll teach you all these other things, and you'll be able to make 7 figures. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. He's like, but the only way you can get inside that program is if you sell 100 people. I was like, oh, okay. And I had a small gym, guys. I had a really small gym. Like I just found a picture. I can share it with you guys later if you guys want to. Like my gym was 800 square feet. Okay. It was super small. And think about this, 36 people in 1 week, like end up selling 100 people. Like I didn't have place for all these people. Like our classes were 8 at the time. We blew that out of the water. Like I had class with like 30 freaking people in it because like I had people in the parking lot. Like I didn't have I put people in the parking lot to be able to do this. And the only reason I did it is because Alex said that I couldn't get into this thing called Legacy unless I sold 100 people. So I was just like, I'm gonna do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about just like who's Alex, bro. Like I don't think the people know.
Oh yeah. So yeah. A year ago, nobody would know who Alex is. Now, almost everyone knows who Alex is, at least in the entrepreneurship space. So, Alex Hermosi, he's big on YouTube now. And honestly, the guy is freaking amazing. He's a great business mind. He's a great human being. And I just was very, very lucky. Very grateful to be where I was in that situation. And just like some things are fate. Some things are lucky, very fortunate. And so to have somebody in that situation be able to take you by the hand, again, just super lucky. And obviously, like the results are in fitness. But as we'll start to hopefully transition here a little bit into real estate, like those skill sets I learned from fitness and from that program have translated into real estate and allowed me to just shortcut a process because of somebody showed me the way. Right. And that's why I'm so grateful for mentorship.
Wow, bro. That's what I was gonna say. It seems like you have a lot of high level mentors. Like it seems like you put mentorship up there, right? Like how much would you mind sharing how much you spend on mentorship like a year? Do you make that a point to spend a certain amount on mentorship?
Yeah, we very much value mentorship. It's like one of the things that I will spend any amount of money if I believe that relationship or that mentorship will like whether it's a person I want to meet or whether it's the information I want to meet, like I'm willing to spend the money. I don't necessarily have like a specific budget, or again, I don't have a like I'll spend this much or I won't spend this much. I just look at it as the opportunity cost of like, does this person fill a need that can get me to the goal? And if it does, I'll spend the money, right? So on Alex, like again, that first program was like 10 grand, and then Gym Legacy, I was the very first person. So this is pretty cool. This is the thing I'm like, the thing I'm proud of. So Gym Legacy, which was Alex's mastermind, his mentorship, which is the next level after that, I was the very first person in that, right? And the reason I know that is because after at the gym launch, he signed me up for Gym Legacy. Like he went to he went to the pitch. And I was like, bro, like you don't got to pitch me. Like I'm in. I legitimately do not care what it costs, right? And so at that time, I think it was like $17,000 down, and then it was whatever it was a month. I don't even remember. It was like $1,500 a month, and I did that for years, right? And so yeah, so I spent the money on that, and then started getting into real estate. I've spent money on mentorships in real estate, and I've spent like my most expensive mentorship, I spent $100K on a mentorship, and that was like not a payment plan, that was like upfront. And so that was our most expensive one, and then something like we're all in PACE mentorship, and that's like less than 10 grand. I was like, forever. This is freaking amazing. Right? I was like, whatever, dude. Like, yes, please. And then that's honestly, Mike. So we actually met at the mastermind, and then they talked about like a mastermind. I was like, oh, like what's a mastermind? I was like, yeah, and that's an extra. I think it was like $12,000. I was like, yes, like let's just do that. Let's just do it all together. And so I remember showing up to Pace's mastermind, and I'd been in the group for like 2 weeks. And in the mastermind, they're like, "What are you doing here? Like, you know, like you just got to the group."
I look to my left, and I'm like, "Yo, who the heck are these people? I've never seen these people before." Logan over here just looks like a damn model. I'm like, bro, what the heck? I'm supposed to be the only good-looking person here.
Like you definitely are, and we're the most handsome person there. Like,
I'm
no
just
joke,
playing, bro. I'm not that good looking.
Very good looking. I noticed that,
bro.
And so we didn't even have a real estate business, right? Like that was the funny part. It was like we didn't have a real estate business. Like,
yeah.
And I was in that room because I valued that relationship. I knew that being in that room, meeting you guys, right, Mike, you were in that room, meeting you, and then being able to connect to other people in that room, and then obviously getting a little bit closer to Pace and just getting more access to Pace and just getting him to know who I was as well, and for him to know who my wife was, like that was important to me. So going back to your question, Daryl, about like spending money on mentorship and things like that, like most people will tell you, and it sounds good, that you should value relationships over money, right? Like everyone will say that, but do you act according? Do you actually pull your wallet out and say, you know what, this money isn't as important as my relationship with Daryl, or my relationship with Mike, or my relationship with Pace? Most people aren't willing to do that. And if you actually can like take that from like just take that concept and be like, oh, anytime you're starting to like doubt, like, should I invest in this? It's like, what's more important to you? Like, what are your values? Because what you say and what you do, when those are different, that's when you start to feel frustration.
Bro, and I tell people that all the time, right? When people ask me all the time, how much is sub to? How much is sub to? I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. Like that, the question isn't how much is it, it's how much value am I going to get from this? Right? Like I used to be the same way though. I used to think, man, I'm not spending money on a course or something I can find on YouTube, but I can do this on my own. But then just joining a mentorship and just joining a community and getting, like you're saying, getting access to these high level people who actually care and want to see you succeed is just
different, bro. Yo, literally, at Clever, my girl, they're talking about the Avengers, right? and signing up. And my girl's like, yo, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing
Congratulations, by the way, Mike. That's amazing.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
So she keeps bumping me. She's like, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it. I'm like, no, the heck we're not. I ain't spending that money right now. And she's like, no. We have to do it. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. I let it be for like, I think it was the first half a day, first day. And then she kept forcing it, bro. She's like, yo, no. I'm making you do it. Give me your wallet. And she ran to the freaking back and essentially signed me up. And I was pissed off, yo. I'm like, yo, you don't know where I'm like trying to direct my money right now. Like, chill out. And I was actually mad at her. I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I go back. The next morning, I'm meditating, right? And I'm having a conversation in my meditation. And I'm like, yo, why was I so mad? And he's like, bro, you didn't believe in yourself. Like, you didn't believe that whatever you went to go spend, you were going to either make back or make some sort of value from it. And I can tell you right now, just from being in the mentorship of the mastermind for the past like 2 weeks, I've already gotten freaking 20 times the value that I spent.
Yeah.
So it's so dope. So guys, if you're listening, please, if you've ever got introduced, maybe you're watching from Facebook or YouTube and you're even thinking about getting into sub 2, or you're thinking about getting into any other mastermind or something like that. And you're like, man, I just don't know. Just freaking believe and go swipe that card.
What I found too is that you're looking for evidence in the Avengers, you're looking for evidence in Paige, you're looking for evidence in Alex, you're looking for evidence in Chris. Like, you need to look for evidence to borrow that belief to instill it in yourself, because ultimately it's on you in order to make it actually work. And I think so many people, they're like, I wonder if this is going to be good. I wonder if I'm going to get the value. Back to what Daryl said, you're asking the wrong question. It's like, where am I going to find the value in this mentorship? And it's already there. And when you have that fundamental belief that everything is already right there, you just got to go search for it and go find it. Who is the accountability on? Is it on Cody Sperber or Cole Hatter, on whoever runs the Avengers, or is it on, sub 2 and Pace? Like, is it on them for them to provide values, or for you to go find the value?
Yep.
I think that's one of the most fundamental beliefs that has helped change me, is like, it ain't about them. Like, they are providing the resource, but it's on me to go find it. It's on me to actually be the one who implements it.
Yeah, 100%. So good.
So I'll be successful in any mentorship I do. That's why I do so many. That's why I'm not afraid to spend money, because like, the risk is what? Like, it's just harder for me to go find the value that I need in order for me to justify paying for it. That's
right.
Easy.
So good, bro. One more thing. The 3 years that you were hustling and trying to making that thing work, the gym work, and it just wasn't working. How did you manage that with your relationship?
With Katie?
Yeah.
Well, she didn't marry me for my money, right? It was great. Like, our relationship was just that. Like, she saw me grind, she saw me hustle. Like, I was just as excited in 2014, 2015, 2016 as I was at the end of 2017. The only difference was that I just had like more resources, but like, I really did enjoy the process. I loved learning. I loved going through the struggles and like seeking information. And so it was never, when I say I banged my head against the wall, I just banged my head against the wall because like, I wasn't making enough money to where I could truly serve at the level I wanted to. So that's where I felt insignificant, but I really do and did enjoy the journey. I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed going through those and like being on Saturday and Sunday buying like Russell Brunson course, right? And going through that and understanding what ClickFunnels was and marketing and sales. And so like, I enjoy, and I still enjoy that process. And I still enjoy learning. I still enjoy going through that process. So to say that my relationship with Katie was great, because like, I enjoyed learning. I would share everything I could with her, and she enjoyed hearing it. At that point, she was just our relationship was, I was the fullback, she was the cheerleader, right? So she encouraged me. She was like definitely my biggest supporter. And then it was actually Alex who encouraged Katie to come into the business. And so after, in 2017, at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, Katie actually quit her job and she went all in with me inside the business. And it no longer became my business, but it became our business. And so that's when our relationship kind of went to the next level. Instead of us having a fullback cheerleader relationship, we had a fullback quarterback relationship. And I think it's really important in relationships to just understand what roles are. But, and by the way, like there's so many people out there who have cheerleader and fullback relationships. Like those are phenomenal relationships. You just must understand your role, right? And so as a fullback, people get frustrated because as fullbacks, they want the cheerleader sometimes to step in and play quarterback or play tailback. And then the cheerleader's like, bro, like, that's not my game. And they get frustrated and there becomes this, like this power pull because the role that the cheerleader originally signed up for, like she doesn't want to be on the field, but the fullback, I need you. Right. And so that's where a lot of problems can happen. Now, if the spouse, again, I'm not just talking to husbands or to husbands bring their wives in. I'm talking about wives sometimes too. Is like when you bring your spouse from cheerleader in and into the game as a fellow fullback or as a quarterback, like that role needs to be clearly delineated, and all of a sudden your relationship must change. They're just two different types of relationships. One is not better than the other one, but understanding your role is one of the most important things that you can have with your partner.
Yeah, I see why I said in the beginning that you teach me so much, even not about real estate. Like it just be about life stuff, bro. Our very first conversation, I'll never forget this. You're just like, "You have a girlfriend?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you love her?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Are you gonna marry her?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, what are you waiting on?" And I'm like, "I don't know what I'm waiting on, actually." Like,
Yeah, that's so funny. Pace did the same thing to me last weekend. He's like, bro, you didn't marry this chick yet? What are you doing?
I love that. I love it, bro. But yeah, man.
It's because it's so important, right, guys? And like Pace knows it, Alex knows it, I know it. But sometimes when you're not in a situation, you're not quite married yet, you don't quite know it because you haven't experienced the other side yet. And it's everything. That's why I challenged Daryl. And you know, in Daryl's situation, it worked out differently. It's like she wasn't the person for Daryl, right? She wasn't the person for you. She wasn't going to be your cheerleader or your quarterback. She's going to be a freaking naysayer. She's going to be somebody who held you back, right? And so, like, good for you, right?
She's going to be the ref.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she'll be throwing flags at you the whole time, right? Now, yellow flag. And so that's why it's so important. It really is.
I love that. So, bro, let's talk a little bit of real estate before we go.
Let's chat some real estate now.
Yeah, word. Oh, hour, bro. This is so good.
House in Arizona that you're gonna cash flow $1,000 a month on and live in at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great because I think the story actually lends itself to understanding how we got into real estate, and we got into real estate probably a little bit different than how a lot of maybe the people who are listening to this who started in wholesaling. We didn't start in wholesaling because we didn't need income. Our income came from our gym, right? And so we were able to create income from our gym, be able to stack cash. That was one of Alex's big like movements inside the Gym Legacy Group, is stack cash, stack cash, stack cash. And so we started stacking cash. I started to realize that like the more cash I had, actually I got like a lot more scared. I was like, well, now I have all this cash. What the hell am I going to do with this cash? Like it needs to go somewhere. Like this money in the bank. Like I didn't need all this cash. And so before that, I had already started learning about real estate. I knew back in my self-education process that I knew I wanted to invest in real estate. And so I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in like 2016. So that was even before I got really uppity with the cash flow. I knew that once I had money, I knew where it was going to go, right? And that's looking back on it, looking at a lot of my fellow gym lords, my fellow gym owners, the mistakes they made is that they were able to make money as well, but they spent their money, right? They bought more equipment. They upgraded their gym. I did that a little bit, but I also realized really quickly, like I didn't want to spend a ton of money on that. And so I put all my money into real estate. And so we bought our first property in 2019. Traditionally, literally through the banks, found the property, and put 25% down. So I think we put down like $66,000. We bought our first rental. It cash flowed like $700 a month. Still own that rental today. And we did that 2 or 3 times. And that was kind of our process for getting started into real estate. And yeah, it was great because we had a business that created cash, and we just literally dumped that cash into an investment property. And that's kind of how it all started.
I love that. I have another mentor who always teaches me the importance of like just having three different businesses, right? A business that's going to produce you cash, business that's going to produce you cash flow, and then a portfolio,
Yeah.
right? And that's awesome. We're taking your cash business and you're just dumping everything into rentals, which
Yeah.
is awesome. So
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay.
So that's how our journey started, and then we found out really quickly that even though we made some money, it wasn't enough for how much real estate we wanted to buy, especially because we're buying in Bozeman, Montana, which our market, like at that time the median home price was like $550,000-$600,000. That was like 3 years ago. Now it's $850,000-$900,000 because inflation, right? It's craziness, which has been helpful for us, but also now it's also harder to buy things at those price points, and so we started running out of cash real quick. So that's when I started looking for alternative avenues of getting into deals, and that's honestly how I ran into Pace. Here's another cool story, right? Like, I love stories, if you guys couldn't tell. So, and I also think that a lot of things happen because we search for it and we look for it. And I was looking for a way that I can continue to buy real estate because I love real estate. I love what it has done for my family. I love what it's done for the people around me. And I've always believed that is a much bigger pie that I can share and I can bring people in too. And I couldn't get that in fitness, right? Like, fitness, it was great for me. My family was able to serve us, but I could never figure out how to make it so I could bring Daryl into my fitness business, make money, and Mike to bring Mike in my fitness business and make money. It's just like I tried it so many times, I just couldn't figure it out. And what I realized was it just wasn't a big enough opportunity. Like, that's actually what it was. It really wasn't. And so real estate, man, that's why I love real estate so much, because the opportunity is massive. And I've always had this underlying desire to bring people in and create this huge freaking like empire, right? And so I was like, okay, but I need cash, and I need in my lending, like I was running out of properties I could buy on my credit. And so we were going to Disney World in November of 2021, so just last year. And from Montana, our flight was from Montana to Salt Lake, and then Salt Lake over to Florida. And so that flight was like 4 or 5 hours. And so I was like, I need something to listen to on this plane ride. And so I downloaded some podcasts off of YouTube. And again, I was listening to Alex. I listened to Kid McElroy. I listened to Chandler David Smith. So lots of real estate guys. And then I downloaded Bigger Pockets podcast, which I haven't listened to Bigger Pockets in years. Like, that's how I got started learning about some of these people. Ryan Pineda, I found Ryan Pineda off the Bigger Pockets podcast, but I hadn't listened to Bigger Pockets in a long time. And for some reason, guys, like I'm not joking you. I went there and just like I randomly scroll through because those podcasts are a little bit longer, and those guys I listen to, they usually like all their videos are like 20, 30 minutes. So I wanted something that was a little bit longer. Like, oh, a Bigger Pockets podcast would be great. Downloaded Pace's podcast. Didn't know who Pace was. And so I listened to that on the freaking plane to Florida. And on the whole time, I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh, dude. This guy is freaking blowing my mind. And keep in mind, like, I just listened to Kid McElroy before that. I just listened to Chandler Davis Smith before that. Listened to Patrick McDavid, like Alex. Like, obviously, Patrick and Alex aren't real estate guys, but those other two are. I'm just like, this guy's saying things that, oh, I listened to Kiyosaki. And he's like, this guy is saying different things. I've never heard anyone talk about these things that Pace is talking about. And as soon as I got off the plane, I was like, Katie, like, this guy is freaking crazy. I looked him up. I'm not shitting you guys. I looked him up on his Instagram. Found him on Instagram. Guess where Pace was? He was at Disneyland.
Oh, at Disneyland. Oh,
Disney World. The same day I was there. No kidding. Like, it was. I was like, dude, this is freaking nutty. So I messaged him. I messaged Pace, right? And I don't remember what I said. I can probably go look. Didn't respond to me, of course, right? But I was just like, oh my God, this guy's freaking amazing. I started following him a little bit more. And so our plan for Disney World was we took the kids down there. We actually brought Katie's mom down with us as well. And so we spent 4 days at Disney World, and then we had a day break, and then we were going to Tony Robbins right after that. And so on the day break, Katie's mom was taking the kids back to Montana, and then we were driving from Orlando down to West Palm Beach. And so I had set up a phone call with Pace's team to get us signed up into what a sub 2 on that day break, right? And so that's kind of how it all started. It's like we got done with Disney World, never connected with Pace, but then I signed up with Pace and the mastermind right there. And then we went to Tony Robbins for another 3 or 4 days. And then we flew back. And I think the next weekend or 2 weekends after that was the mastermind, right? And I got to keep going, right? You can't even make this shit up. So the guy tells me the dates of the mastermind. There was like 2 weeks after that. It was like December. Mike, do you remember what the dates were of the mastermind?
Yeah, it was in the beginning of December, like the 2nd or something.
So I looked at the dates. I was like, oh, Katie's like, oh, we have a swim meet that weekend. I was like, oh, where's it at? It's Phoenix, Arizona.
What the heck?
So that weekend that we were there at the mastermind, we brought our whole family there again because we already, like, that trip was already planned. We already planned that trip. We just had to make another day before. I think it was the only thing we had to do. Like, I think we changed our flight, so we just made it from like a Thursday. I think we moved, or it was a Friday, and we moved it to a Thursday or something like that. I can't quite exactly remember, but we basically moved the day of just one day. We were already going there.
That's
right? Like, sometimes it's just fate. And it's just like we were in that right room, and like we were the only one in that room and didn't actually have a real estate business, right? Like we were just someone who like buy and hold, and we did it very casually in the aspect of like we didn't have marketing, we didn't have leads, and some things are just fate, right? And some things were just a belief that like I knew I needed to be in that room. I know I needed to meet you, Mike. I know I needed to be part of this community so I could eventually meet Daryl and be able to meet Pace and be part of this community. Like I just something about that was it was very calling.
So good, bro. That's crazy.
Something I noticed during this interview is that we have very similar, bro. You really trust your gut and you just go after it. Like it seems like you don't take much time like making a decision. It's like you make a decision, boom, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome.
I've gotten better. I've gotten better at that process. I used to be a lot quicker, and now I'm a little bit more methodical. Yeah. But I've also figured out a little bit of process. And when I say methodical, like I usually will give myself two or 3 days on big decisions. I'm like, okay, that's good. Or sometimes I'm just like, oh, right away, I'll know. But yes, ultimately, you got to be able to trust yourself.
It can definitely go both ways. Like me personally, I believe I need to work on that, giving myself a couple of days. But like, I don't know. It's like I see something and I'm like, oh yeah. I want to do it. Let's do it.
I've done it both ways, and ultimately, it's just like when you believe in yourself, you'll figure it out. Again, no matter what happens, like always figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst thing? Like, literally, what is the worst thing that's gonna happen? Like Pace says it really, really, really well. It's like, are you still gonna have your birthday? Yeah. Are you still gonna have your wife? Right? Are you still gonna have food on the table? And ultimately, like, really, what that really means is that is it really that big of a deal? Like money comes and goes. It's not important. Again, if you value money over relationships, you value money over time, like then it might seem like a big deal, but like I don't value money in that same aspect, right? I value money, what it can do and the resources it can provide. But as far as like it in itself, like it is to be used. It is not to be hoarded or stored. Right?
Yeah, bro. At the end of the day, what the heck is the worst thing that's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's how I go by everything.
So you're a real deal cash buyer, bro. How do people get deals to you? How do people work with you? I know you really love. I know you're really goal oriented, and you have a goal. I think to do it. What was it? A deal with how many people?
Yeah, so we have a goal right now that we're buying 50 homes in 50 states.
I love that.
Damn, right? And I like that.
That means we need them in Massachusetts. We actually have a deal in Massachusetts under contract right now. It would be a good deal.
Really?
Yeah.
Where at?
Worcester.
No shit. I lived there for like 7 years.
Yeah, Worcester. It's gonna be a great deal too. It's a great deal.
Really? What is it?
All came from Sub 2. So kid named Brandon, he owns a Keegley franchise out there. Yeah. He's the one who brought it to me, and it's a 40 unit, and getting it on. It's a cash deal, but he has experience in corporate rentals, and so we're able to transition it from just a normal rental into corporate rental prices, and they're drastically different. Able to get a decent deal on it, and it'll cash flow probably about $6,000 a month. Like it's going to be a monster cash flow.
Interesting, bro.
And I brought that
city's coming up like crazy, by the way.
Yeah, I know. It looks like an amazing area. Looks like a great area. And I actually, so me and him partnered up on it, and then I found the money from a different mentorship, my Chris Chrome mentorship I'm part of, brought in an amazing human being from that mentorship who's going to bring the money to this deal. And yeah, so there's like 3 of us on this deal. And so that's basically what we're doing is we're buying properties like that in Massachusetts. We're buying them in Montana, Arizona, like all 50 states. And that's exactly what we're doing. So if you have a deal, so we need 2 things, guys. We need deals. So if you guys have deals, or if you guys have capital, like that's what we need in order to make this thing happen. And we're only doing partnerships. We only want to do deals with people. Like if you're a wholesaler, like we'll pay your wholesale fee, but I want you to have equity too. Like as long as you're in the backyard and you can manage it, like please, like I want you in the deal. And so that's what we're doing, man. And people who have capital, again, if you want to be a lender on it, awesome. But if you want equity, like we're doing equity as well. So like our goal is to get 50 homes in 50 states because ultimately that's a big pie, right? And I want you to have your first piece of the pie. I want you to have some cash flow. I want you to have some equity, and I want it to be your first deal of many deals that we do together.
Bro, that's dope,
bro. Such a giver, bro.
You're the freaking man.
Yeah,
I love it, man. So when's the best way to get deals to you?
Yeah, so I think you guys did it right there on the bottom of the screen. So you guys can get me on Instagram. That's gonna be the best place. YouTube is not a great place to message me on. You can watch some of our content on YouTube. Like we're posting about our deals. So we just we'll do deal breakdowns. Me and my wife Katie, we do a podcast as well called Invest With Us, where we break down the deals that we're doing, and so you guys can see kind of what we're buying, entry fees, spreads, things like that. But as far as the best way to get a hold of me, Instagram, that's where I am the most active. On Facebook, if you're in the Sub 2 community, you know, obviously you get me on Facebook. If you're not in Sub 2, go get in Sub 2. But Instagram, that's the easiest way.
Bro.
Logan, bro, this was a dope show. Daryl, like I keep saying after every show, we keep getting better.
It keeps getting better, bro.
Logan, we only chatted about real estate this much, which means it was a good show, right?
Exactly.
because hold on, Daryl, sorry not to interrupt you, but like this is actually important because I'm sure as you guys have noticed when you guys do you guys podcasts, and when me and Sam do our podcast, and even when me and Katie do our podcast as well, like the real fun stuff has nothing to do with the actual dollars and cents. It's nothing to do with the sticks and paper of real estate. It's everything to do with the people, the lessons, and the experiences. And that's actually what life is actually about.
For sure, bro. 100%.
So good.
The real estate and money, like they're not the end, right? They're just a piece of the puzzle to get us what is really important, which is relationships, right? Which is experiences, which is stories. Like that's what actually matters. And Alex does a great job. So me and Alex both have a guy that we use for lots of our wisdom named Dr. Trevor Cashy. He's someone who's like very instrumental in my life. Another mentor who I paid a lot of money for, who's now also become a friend of mine. Super smart guy, right? Super smart guy. And that is like ultimately what it is about those relationships and about those people. And like when you have those things, like money is not the end all. Like it's just the connection to get that relationship, those experiences. And he always talks about like when you're on your deathbed, you're sitting there 80, 90, 100 years old, however you are going to be when you're going to die. Like, what are you going to talk about? You're talking about all the money you made? Are you going to talk about the experiences? You're going to talk about the stories. You're going to talk about the people, right? What's actually important to you?
So good, bro.
Logan, thank you, bro. Yep. This is a dope show.
Appreciate you guys.
I didn't realize how much we had in similarities. Like, bro, your story is dope.
Well, it's amazing. And Mike, like, I would love to connect with you more. Like me and Daryl, like we're always hauling at each other. But Mike, I'd love to connect with you more and honestly know about your story and just develop that relationship for sure.
Sure, bro. Appreciate you coming on here, dog.
So much, bro. You know how much I look up to you and Katie, dog. Let's definitely connect some more after this. I can't wait to be a part of that 50 deals in 50 states. I'm gonna help you out. We're gonna get some deals together. I'm gonna count for like 5 of them. Wow.
I was gonna say I gotta get Logan some deals.
But
awesome, fellas. I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, big dog.
We're out.